Hello, everyone. I know we had some Zoom trouble for a while there. A few of you still aren't in. It didn't let me start it up right away, including Lindsay's. Lindsay's having, oh no, Lindsay's in now, okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, Ben is having the same trouble. So it's, let me just take a couple minutes and respond to people's emails who are saying they can't get in. We're still saying they can't get in, and I don't understand why. Back in a sec.
The first time I clicked on the link, it said it was for a class at 8:40 in the morning. And then when I clicked on it a second time, it let me in.
Yeah, I had to click on it like 3 different times because it said that it was scheduled for August at like 8:30.
Right. Really? That's odd. Let me just see why this is not showing. Huh. I wonder if anybody else had that, because it's showing in my Zoom as being a recurring meeting and it doesn't need to have a specific date on it. Did any of you have that trouble with the class before?
Oh, no.
Really?
No,
No.
not before today.
No, today was the first time.
Yeah, it was really weird.
And you just clicked on the thing in the syllabus in the normal way?
Yep.
Yeah.
I did it through the email you sent us the other day, but it
Yeah, I
only
even
took
did-
me twice.
Yeah, I did that too. And then I even tried closing out Zoom to make sure it wasn't like an issue with Zoom.
Yeah, I did it off of the homepage of the syllabus, and it I had to do it twice, and I also closed out Zoom to make sure that that wasn't the issue, and then it finally just loaded.
Yeah, that's what I did because I hit it on like the syllabus and it said it was a meeting for August 26th, and then I had to close out and I had to redo it again.
Yeah, me too, because that's exactly what it said. And even when I reopened it the second time, it still said that, but I gave it a second and then it finally loaded me into the meeting.
All right, what I may have to do is give it a new link. It's not supposed to have that. It's supposed to have, because if, for instance, if it says that, that means it's not a recurring class, and it's supposed to be, in Zoom anyway, it's supposed to be listed as a recurring class. And so you're never supposed to get a date that says August 26th at 2:30 or 6:30 or whatever that's said by mistake. So I'm gonna check that out. Now. Okay, not now, but when we finish. Katie's saying Zoom as a whole was being problematic today. Bree's saying the same thing. It may have been just a fluke, but what I don't understand is Zoom for some reason is now not showing my class in my recurring, not showing this class in recurring classes on the Zoom program itself. So I will still have to look at it. And that reminds me of another thing I need to apologize for. I just completely forgot to put the videos from Tuesday's discussion, Tuesday's Zoom up on Canvas. So I apologize for that. So let me get into our module. Courses. Module. Early Capitalism, Think Chapter 2, question assignments. Okay, so I have put, let's see, I'll show a share screen situation here. Yeah, they're the Think Chapter 2 questions, and we're going to talk about. But before we do that, any other questions about this or anything? Let me sorry, let me do that thing here where I can see everybody. Any other questions? Okay, like I said last time, I was really happy with the discussion last time, so I hope we can keep that going. Show active speaker. Sorry, we've still, wait a minute. Sorry, wait. Crap. Am I on mute or no? No, I'm not on mute. Okay. All right, now let me share screen to get to the questions. God, pain in the neck, pain in the neck, pain in the neck. Someone turned me in for swearing last semester, so I have to be more.
Someone turned you in for swearing?
Yeah, and should have. I dropped an S bomb. I literally dropped something on my desk and I said, "Oh, S," as I was picking it up. And I got a call the next day from the administration saying that a student was shocked that I swore on Zoom. And so I apologize. And frankly, you know, students should complain if I swear or if I say something wrong or stupid or inappropriate. I hope I don't ever say anything inappropriate. I didn't think the S-bomb was all that bad, but somebody
Well, it
did.
won't offend
So
me if you say anything.
what?
Said it won't offend me if you say anything.
Well, I'll try not to. But you know, definitely turn me in. You know, if something goes wrong, don't feel hesitant to do that at all, and you do so anonymously. So that's not a problem. I didn't cry myself to sleep or anything that night. So, all right, like I said, I really like the discussion of Edwards. Chapter 2, but I did have a couple of emails from some of you saying that the Think book, some of you still don't have the Think book. Is that true?
Yeah, like 4 of my books for the class were on back order the last time I checked.
Anybody else besides Caitlin? Just one second here.
I got it, but I'm still getting emails from like the bookstore saying I'm having other issues with my books, but like I have all of them now, so I don't understand what's going on.
Yeah, I'm having
Okay.
that issue too. I have Edwards and Fink, but I'm getting emails saying that my stuff is ready, and then when I go to pick it up, they're telling me that it's not there and that it's on back order. So I don't really know what's going on with the bookstore right now.
It's a whole mess.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that, particularly because I really like. I mean, it's just sort of coincidence, but we're in a good period in American history now where this Gilded Age progressive era stuff that's coming out is really good, and I think the Think book especially is a great one to give us all these different documents. So is it only then? Sorry, who just said that? Is it only? Crap, who just said that? Is it only
That was
Lindsay who
me.
doesn't have Think? Is it
No,
only
I have
Lin-
fake. I have fake.
Okay,
Yeah,
who
I don't
doesn't?
have all.
Is it-
Caitlin, I don't have all 4 of my books. It says they're all on back order.
Okay, so you obviously then couldn't read Think for today.
Yeah, I couldn't.
Okay, so I'm going to write, the reason I asked is I'm writing this down. Book on back order. But everybody else was able to read chapter 2. Yes,
Yeah.
no, maybe.
I see in the chat, but Joseph Ward is saying that his is also on back order.
Crap.
Yeah, mine on back order too.
I can
Okay,
send
Joe.
people pictures of the book if anyone needs them. I can
Well-
like email whoever doesn't
Yeah, I
have.
could too. I have the paper copy. I could just take pictures.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what I did was, remember I said to you, I think the very first day of class, I'm going to scan chapter 1 and send it to you. And then when I scanned it, my scanner is obviously old and crappy and it was all blurry. Well, I ordered a new scanner and it should be here today in theory. So I will be able to scan chapters 3 and 4 as we go on, so that those of you, so Joe and Caitlin, at least will have that. So what I'm hoping is this new scanner will be better because it's not 20 years old. And just let me see. Let me just double check. You see my wonderful Amazon account here. I know this is just absolutely exciting as hell. Orders. Track package. All right, well, I'll keep it. If not, I'll run to Staples and copy it or something. Okay, so anyway, let's do the best we can. And someday this will all end. Someday all this stuff will stop becoming a problem. All right, so who am I? Okay, so we have David, Garrett, Megan, Brianna, and Joe, although not Joe because he's on back order, who we're going to compare the ways Andrew Carnegie celebrates the triumph of America with the ways that Henry George dissects the paradox of capitalist growth. So someone jump in and start us off there. Someone from that group. Anyone from that group.
All right, I'll kick us off.
Okay, Garrett, good man.
I found it interesting how Carnegie is just so like happy or excited at how great this country has grown in like the past century, saying like this has never been done before. This growth is unprecedented within a country in this period of time, and it's only going to get better. And then
Yeah.
George is saying things like, how can this country be doing so well if people are getting jobs, making money, but people are still in poverty and stuff like that. So I thought that was really interesting, comparing those two.
Yeah, you can almost see Andrew Carnegie being a preacher or something, the way that the tone of this, yeah? He's kind of like jumping up and down. What else? Was that Garrett? That was Garrett, yeah. What else, Megan or Brianna or David?
I found it interesting how he said about how wealth has been increased so that George said that how wealth has been increased and so has the average comfort, leisure, and refinement, though this isn't the same for the lower class, and it is more likely depressed for the condition of the lower class. And then I saw how Carnegie kind of said something about how there really wasn't classes or something like that in his, but
Yeah,
I found
or that Carnegie certainly leaning towards the idea that this type of capitalism in these type of innovations are going to lead to more or less a classless society, or not a society that doesn't have differentiations in wealth, but at least one in which those differentiations don't matter. Right. Do you think maybe that I mean, this is the classic comparison, taking Carnegie on the one hand and George on the other. As we go along, you'll see that George is probably more accurate in the way things eventually turned out. But did you, of the two of them, was there any sort of, were you more attracted to one argument than the other? Can you understand why Carnegie is so positive and but yet also understand why George is so skeptical?
I think George's was a lot more realistic, and he focused maybe more on the negatives, but he was looking more at the divide between the rich and the poor. And Carnegie was more saying everyone was equal, everyone has the same rights, politics, everyone agrees on all that. And yeah, I think I like George's more because I think it focused on how things actually were.
Do we think that I sometimes think when I go back over Carnegie, is that he's writing as if this stuff has already happened, but what he really means, maybe deep down without even knowing it, he means things are like this. Things are improving so fast that the way I'm talking about it now is what's gonna happen in 10 years. In other words, he's just getting ahead of himself. He's so amazed at the pace of change, which for a lot of people was amazing, that it seems as if the United States, are well on the road to solving all these problems. He's jumping. I get the impression he's kind of jumping the gun here. He's saying this is all going to turn out wonderful. Did anyone else get that feeling, Michaela?
I think maybe perhaps reality between these two is somewhere in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I'm sure that's true. On the other hand, one of the things, again, as we'll learn, is that it's in the middle, but it's probably leaning towards George's. What happens eventually is leaning toward George's description of society. On the other hand, the problem is that Carnegie would argue that what happens later in the period is that because no one else or very, very few other people act like he does in a philanthropic manner, in his conception anyway, in a philanthropic manner, in his retirement, that the whole point of his working the way he did and planning out the way his career the way he did the whole point of that wasn't being taken up by enough other people to create this sort of society that he thought was already on the way to being created. Do you see what I mean? That Rockefeller didn't go out and fund libraries and stuff like that. It's Rockefeller's, by the way, it's Rockefeller's children and grandchildren who go off and become philanthropists. So that's the problem. It's not the idea that necessarily this new system or the new Gilded Age or this new early capitalism in the Gilded Age is wrong. It's just that people didn't follow through. Let's put it that way. That's the way I think Carnegie is viewing what's going on. Yes, no, maybe, what? I can't be that, I can't have explained Andrew Carnegie that easily in 2 sentences. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that makes more sense. I was kind of taking it as what he was explaining was what he was seeing at the time, but it does make sense. Yeah, like he was looking.
I think he thinks that. I'm just wondering whether he's kind of like being a little rosy and optimistic because that's what should be happening. That's what's going to be happening next. If you see what I mean. I interrupted you there, Bree. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. Yeah, it makes sense now, but I think he was definitely jumping the gun, like you said, and getting far ahead. And I mean, everything he was saying, it would have been great if that's actually what the reality would have been, but you know, it wasn't.
You see, I think there's a tendency for people for a lot of students of history, professors of history, to say that Carnegie was just a true believer and believed in the gospel of wealth and believed in this stuff so wholeheartedly, and he wasn't being realistic about what would happen. And I think the more modern trend of historians is starting to say that, well, actually, Carnegie gets kind of later in life is very disappointed and angry at his fellow wealthy people for not doing what he did. Because a lot of the things that Carnegie thinks are going on because of this new wealth are because of his philanthropy, but he assumes that everybody else is going to do the same thing too. Eric, you're lighting up.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if you can hear me. Sorry, I had to connect to my cell phone. Hopefully you can hear me.
Oh. Okay. Well, let's move on to well, what I'm trying to say is it's be careful when you're reading other stuff that talks about Carnegie having one view that's 100% this way and George having one view that's 100% the other way. I think there are more subtleties in each man's argument, and there are more kind of like subtle reasons behind why each man is saying what he's saying. And the Carnegie getting kind of disillusioned with his fellow wealthy entrepreneurs is an amazing development later on in society. Okay, let's move on to question 2 here. What does Ragged Dick learn about the nature of work in Gilded Age America? Let's start with that before we go on to Mark Twain.
I think that one of the things that's most interesting in that is when the guy's given the description of how he moved upward. He says essentially his eyes gave out and decided that he had nothing else to do, and then he just invented a machine and got super rich.
Well,
so
right.
Just really casually. So it's not necessarily that he worked really hard and earned all this money. He just happened to be in the right place to invent a machine. I guess that's how a lot of this happened. But he goes on to talk about how it's just really putting your money in the smart place and really moving forward. And at the end, Dick says, oh, you know, I put my money in foolish places. He just sleeps outside a hotel. And I think it's such an interesting thing when you look at that, like he listens to the story and he's like, oh yeah, no, I already know that I put my money in bad places, but I'm going to keep doing it.
Well, he promises that he won't. The idea is that he will. He's been enlightened by this old man. And by the way, the reason why the guy says, Mr. Whitney says, he leaves printing is because his eyes. This happened a lot in print shops in those days when you were dealing with print type and you had to actually put the letters in the actual physical blocks of letters. It was very close work, kind of almost like jewelry work. And before they had developed good eyeglasses, it was very common to go blind, at least not necessarily blind, but for it to hurt your eyesight, sometimes just on a temporary basis. Why was I saying that? Oh yeah, but we never hear. By the way, he goes off on the farm. We never hear what kind of machine he invents. It's almost as if that part of the story he just throws that in order to advance the plot along without saying, I invented the wheat thresher or I invented the whatever. What else is Mr. Whitney imparting to Ragged Dick? It's not just the type of work and not just the emphasis on education. What is it? What did you say about, well, frankly, spending your money? Eric, is that you lighting up?
I think. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I couldn't hear you for a second though.
Yeah, I don't know, my audio thing keeps going, so I had to go on my phone, but then disconnected from my phone, so I had to get back on. Anyway.
So were you going to answer that, or
Well,
kid
I
didn't
didn't
hear
hear
it?
anything anybody said, so are we still on the first question?
I was asking your whole group, but Mr. Whitney doesn't just say to Ragged Dick, you should work hard and you should learn things. He is telling him one other thing about life that Ragged Dick needs to, inculcate. What is that?
The only thing I have in my notes for this first question is that for him to attain like an American dream, I put that, you need to have hard work and like good character and honesty. But it was also good luck attracted him.
Yeah, but also he's saying it's one thing. Now this seems common sense to us now, but remember, Ragged Dick is this sort of like waif who Mr. Whitney's trying to sort of parent, if you will. And it says, yeah, you have to make money, but you also have to not spend money on the wrong thing. So he's saying, Ragged Dick's talking about, I'm sleeping on outside a hotel. I spend my money on going down to the Bowery and fooling around with my friends, sometimes gambling. So in other words, Whitney is saying it's a two-sided thing. You have to work and save your money. You have to work, but you also have to save your money and not spend it on foolish things. There's this definite idea of delayed gratification is the word that people use now. That's so important. All right, then Mark Twain is the opposite of that. Not the opposite. Mark Twain gives a, how does he satirize the great American myth? This is the same group. Caitlin, your book's on backwards. Kevin here? Kevin, you're here.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, barely.
Okay. He basically has like a story from his grandpa of a kid that just picks up pins outside of a bank and then is almost given into like a good life because the bank man helps him and lets him marry his daughter and everything. And then he says he tries to do the same by picking up pins and it just doesn't work out at all. So it's like life is more cruel than in a story.
Yeah, he's saying that it's not what Mr. Whitney says is going to happen if you do all these things, right? You could get struck by a lightning bolt and be lucky, or you could, or it could just not go your way. What else? And by the way, of course, Mark Twain is savage in his the way he satirizes this stuff. You know, and by the way, he's obviously satirizing the myth before Ragged Dick is it's published, but I think this shows you how strong this myth is, and in many ways, what Mark Twain is doing is satirizing Andrew Carnegie. Okay. All right, what else about this question has jumped out at you? Any of you, Eric, Caitlin, Katie?
I mean, would you say that like Twain gives people like I put in my notes like with constant with ideas that make them believe like there's a different opinion on how great like our nation is?
Yeah, I think that's true. One of the things that's also the case, which you wouldn't know because you've examined these documents, but the broader context in which they appear is the Ragged Dick story is told over and over and over again to young people, just over and over and over again. It seeps its way into school books and it becomes part of little Sunday school sermons, all kinds of stuff. Whereas nobody ever gives a Sunday school sermon based on the Mark Twain satirization, right? That's exactly what you don't want to do because it's such a downer. So in other words, Ragged Dick has a more of an impact on younger people because they hear it from their teachers and their ministers and so on. But Mark Twain's audience is all grown-ups who are sitting back and reading these periodicals and thinking more broadly about society. Okay, what about question 3? Compare the different ways William Vanderbilt views relations between capital and labor with the ways the anarchist spies view that relationship. This is Ben, Vincent, the two Joes, and Sydney.
So one thing I found interesting was Vanderbilt seems very profit motivated and even bragged about how easy it is to buy up certain politicians, whereas the anarchist spies seem more worker motivated, more labor motivated, and even at one point talks about demanding an 8-hour workday, whereas Vanderbilt does not seem concerned with labor as much as he is self-interest and profit.
Yep, I think that's absolutely true. What else?
Kind of. adding on to what was just said there, I think it was interesting how there was like a little section where Vanderbilt was saying how if like he was kind of keeping workers happy, like if they demanded like a 12-hour wage or something, he would deliver it. But like they're usually getting paid 4 or 5. But then the like the anarchist spies, like were in that excerpt, it was saying how they really just seemed like upset and very displeased with how everything was going for them. And I think it was just more of like a boss man and like a worker's viewpoints on what's actually happening and what's being told is happening.
Do you get a similar sort of sense that the Vanderbilt is the Carnegie here, and George is and August Spies is the Henry George here, like we had in the first couple of documents?
Yeah, for sure.
What else about these? I realize now I wrote that question out the wrong way, but it doesn't matter. I'll write it a different way for next year. What else about these two documents?
So I just realized that I downloaded the Edwards chapter 2 discussion question twice.
Oh.
So that's the one that I have done.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I will write that down here. Is Joseph France here? And by the way, let me ask you something. What's with all the Josephs now? There are 3 in this class. Now, as someone who has had the good fortune in his life to have that name, it's always my whole life, it's been an old-fashioned name that almost no one in my generation has. And I think I knew one other Joe or Joseph. I'm thinking like I have 2 Facebook friends in 1,000 that have the name Joe. Is it making a revival, or is it just because it is a popular ethnic name in this region? Sorry, I'm breaking the flow of our discussion about the Gilded Age.
I think it's
Elizabeth,
probably both.
Okay, because it's a very big Polish name, very big Eastern European name. I just wonder if it's much more common here because of that than, for instance, when I moved to California.
Older names are coming back, like a lot of older names. I realize are coming back. Like a lot of my friends are having babies and like their older names.
Yeah, one of my friends actually that 2 daughters, and named one of them Eleanor, which is I think a beautiful name, but is super old fashioned. I guess it's not old fashioned when you're young. Anyway, just curious, because this hasn't happened to me. I haven't had so many Joes in one section, in one class.
Growing up in high school, I had a teacher who named their kid Atticus.
You're kidding.
No, after the book. It was her favorite book, so she named her son Atticus.
What was the kid's nickname? How did he go by? What's
No,
the short version
I don't
of
know that
Atticus?
he had a nickname. I think they just always called him Atticus. Because I never knew him to have a nickname. She always called him that, so.
Well, Atticus Finch is obviously an admirable character. Oh, Katie's saying there were 6 Joes in my preschool class. You're teaching, Katie?
No. My son's in preschool and there are 6 Joes or Josephs. He's an Owen. He's the only Owen, but there's 6 Joes.
So Joe's making a comeback. Okay, all right. Oh wait, I got to give you brownie points because I have a nephew named Owen. So where do I have my brownie points thing here? Okay,
You spelled it wrong.
I have a cousin named Owen too.
Yeah.
I don't know that many Owens, but I have a cousin named Owen.
Okay. All right. So we're now I've lost my train of thought because we're talking about my name anyway. Yeah, I think always be careful when you're reading these documents, because Fink is right to choose Ragged Dick on the one hand and Mark Twain on the other. He's right to choose Andrew Carnegie on one hand and Henry George on the other. And he's right to choose Vanderbilt on one hand and August Spies on the other. But remember, there are people sort of in the middle too. It's just that these are illustrations of the ways in which the different ways in which people thought at the time. So let's move on to question 4. This is now again when we move on to the essays. These are the historians' work on this period. So Jeanette, Noah, Ann, Jordan, and Connor K. I think Connor K may be having internet difficulties. Who read David Nassau's essay? What were the core values of of Gilded Age millionaires?
It just felt like the rich just wanted to keep getting richer. They eventually got to the point where they were just bribing politicians. They were backing politicians, like when they were trying to determine what was the backing of the American currency between gold or silver. They usually followed the Republican side but then they started going towards the silver. So then they started putting all of their money towards the Democratic side that was trying to back gold and trying to knock out the competition. And then throughout the entire work strikes and everything, the only person that seemed to actually have any feeling towards the workers was Andrew Carnegie backing the workforce unions. But other than that, most of the time they were just trying to hammer it, saying that, hey, we're rich because we got here. The government shouldn't be involved. Survival of the fittest. You guys can do it too. That's how they felt the entire way.
Right. There's no Jay Gould is saying there's no need to be afraid of capital. The aristocracy of wealth is a good thing. I don't think the liberties of the what you have to fear is large ignorant masses of the population. What are some of the? So that was Connor K. So your internet obviously improved.
I moved up to my gram. My house has just crashed. I just walked up to my grams real quick.
Oh, okay. So Jordan or Ann or Noah or Jeanette, how else are the Gilded Age values shown in this essay? Jeanette's here. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just trying to kind of find something to add because Connor kind of said everything I had written down. But I know Carnegie, he put a lot of his money back into society, like with a lot of philanthropy. So I think that's how he kind of allowed, like he thought that was okay that he had that much money because he was always putting it back into the people around him.
Right. Yes. So he sees that in many ways, Andrew Carnegie sees himself as the only one who's doing this the way they should be. Notice, however, how much of this essay is taken up with the question of strikes and workers demanding more payment. There is a sort of consistency in all these Gilded Age millionaires in their reaction to, well, what we might call worker discontent, right? Oh, Ben Cripps is not able to get in. Damn it. Whoops. Oh no, there he is. Okay. Sorry, sorry, Ben. Your email to me just came through, even though you emailed me 43.
You emailed me back. That's weird.
I did? Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Okay. No, wait a minute. Sorry. Before we answer this question about strikes, I have to solve this other problem because Mohit just texted me and he's not here. All right, so He's having Wi-Fi trouble too. I sort of thought that all this Zoom business was going to make things easier, but it's obviously not. Sorry. So overall, what's the view towards strikes and worker discontent? There's an amazing consistency here.
I always thought it was really weird that Andrew Carnegie thought of himself as a philanthropist and putting money back into the community, but he wasn't necessarily helping his immediate workers. He was like, I'm helping your children and your grandchildren. Like,
yeah,
he almost thought that his workers were not capable of thinking ahead for future generations, or weren't responsible enough to look out for their children and grandchildren.
Yeah, I think that's very clear with Carnegie. It's like, look, you have to tough it out, and I am going to make zillions in the. You have to tough it out in the short term. I'm going to make zillions in the short term. We both have these very important. We have both these very clear roles to play, and it's our children and grandchildren who are going to benefit. So none of them are. There isn't really any range of opinion when it comes to how to respond to strikes or worker content over wages, is there? They all seem to say hard cheese. That's the way things are. Now they have kind of slightly different ways of saying how the whole system will eventually make everyone's lives better, but they still don't. Nobody says, oh, actually, maybe you're right. Maybe we should pay our bobbin boys slightly more. Well, bobbin boys don't go on strike, but our steel workers slightly more. Am I right about that, or am I over?
I think I agree with that.
I
All right,
also agree. I think Carnegie, I mean, everybody kind of sees him as like the best millionaire of the time or business owner, but he still kind of had this classist view that workers were too stupid to have enough money to like live.
I have another question. Was it Frick or was it Carnegie who called in the Pinkertons?
Frick.
Oh, okay. I always get that confused.
But remember, Carnegie doesn't oppose it, and he doesn't say, "Hey, look, Henry." Carnegie kind of washes his hands of that.
He was like, "Yeah, whatever you have to do, you're a competent leader."
Well, yeah, but I think also Carnegie saw that no matter what happened, the bosses were going to come out looking bad. That industry was going to come out looking bad. So he let Frick take the fall for it. Now, don't get me wrong. Frick is definitely, a strong man about it. I'm going to do this, and frankly unreasonable about it. But Carnegie was, I think, being a little bit cowardly by staying out of it. Okay, let's move on to the last question, which is the Michael Kazan's essay on the dreams of the American left, and that's Connor, the other Connor, Lindsay, and whoops, I put them down the wrong way. All right, okay, well, anyway, the other Connor, Lindsay, Michaela, Shelby, and oh no, sorry, I'm now looking at next week's assignment.
That's
so
the
this
same
is
that I have down for this one, though.
Connor, Lindsay, Michaela, yeah, Shelby, and
It's Aaliyah.
Aaliyah, sorry, I'm really sorry,
No,
Aaliyah.
that's okay. It's okay. You're not the first person to mispronounce it. It's okay.
It'd be easier I think it'd be always easier in a class situation where I can see all of you, and then I'll remember. But go ahead, Aaliyah. You were going to start off there.
Yeah. So in the essay, he quoted Edward Bellamy, who said that some American radicals were successful in attracting the support for their ideas by financing politicians' campaigns and, whenever it was needed, slipping them stock tips, cash, or railroad passes.
Right. What else? Shelby, are you there? Sorry, wait, let me just click here before I forget. Who was going to say that? Okay, yeah. Someone else was going to say that, and I said Shelby. I interrupted.
Oh, I'm sorry. They also like kept people in like a group, like they like were like, all right, if you do this, like they like were like leaders. So basically like they had like that gospel, which was like a new Christianity, and they like looked up to them, and they like basically had like these different like the social gospel, and they could basically feel more free. So like that's why people looked up to them, I feel like, and like followed them, because they had more of this society, I guess you could say, where people felt so trapped before, and now they have more of like a free reign to do things.
Yeah.
I would say too, another factor is the novels that they wrote, such as Bellamy's Looking Backward in his dystopian future, because millions of copies of that sold, and I think that definitely made him more popular and brought more people over to his beliefs.
Going off of that, I think like part of what made them so popular was the how many people that like they wanted an equal distribution of wealth for the working class compared to the millionaires. So there were so many people that affected, that having these leaders like George and Bellamy that were willing to like speak out on a broad level about it. And like for Bellamy specifically, like he was more like inclusive, I would say, than George, where like he appealed to women and like all religions and everything like that. Like they didn't really care what religion you were if you supported their cause.
What about these the Parsons at the end there, near the end of the Albert Parsons and Lucy Parsons? What's that story about? It's a little bit complicated. It's a little bit difficult to penetrate, but it is an interesting kind of way of looking at the extent to which people will argue that there need to be massive changes.
So Mrs. Parsons was a mulatto, and she was married to an ex-Confederate who pretty much went back on the old aristocratic ways of the South and became a part of the left. And so they both championed the cause for social reforms in ways that they were really able to relate to their communities and to a lot of the everyday workers. And it made them particularly dangerous in the eyes of political leaders and the wealthy at the time.
Right. One of the reasons they end up getting, well, one of the reasons Albert Parsons anyway and August Spies end up getting hanged, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this is, I think one of the things that this shows us is that when people when sort of society and when, if you will, if the elites of society or the money classes of society, whatever you want to say, they then tend to tar all anarchists or all reformers with the anarchist brush. That if you're calling for a certain amount of reform, you must be like the Parsons and be way out on a limb, and therefore you need to be stopped. So, and as Kazan says, the reaction is to meet violence with violence. This is one of the things about this whole period, especially the Gilded Age, is that a lot of the reactions to these things are very, very strong. They're very passionate, very very vocal, and often, in some cases, criminal and violent. So, you know, one thing I always like to say about American history, especially, or all history really, but especially about like this period in American history is, you know, people are paying attention. A lot of people are paying attention. A lot of people are not paying attention, but you know, there's an awful lot. We tend to romanticize the past as if there wasn't as much strife as there is nowadays, and there wasn't as much fake news as there is nowadays, when in reality you could actually say there maybe was more fake news back then, but we'll talk about that later when we talk about progressive era newspapers. So I like that these chapters show you those complications. Okay. All right, so let's continue. I will try to, I'm looking ahead here. It seems to me we need Think chapters 3 and 4 just to make sure scanned and sent out to you for those of you who are still having this back order junk with the bookstore, right? Because 3 and 4, Think next week, Think chapter 3 next week, and Think chapter 4 the following week are the next 2 Think assignments anyway. So when my scanner gets here today, I'm going to scan both of those and put them up. Okay. Can you hear me, or is it gone down? Okay. All right. Well, we'll leave it there and keep reading. I'm glad that those of you who've contributed really have contributed very, very well, and you're getting full points here on my grade sheet. So I'll talk to you on Tuesday. Okay.
Have a good weekend.
Good one.
Thanks.
Thank
Adios.
you.
Before